Okay. I'm like every other fisherman. I just want to catch one more. I couldn't agree more with professional fisherman Bill Dance on that statement. One of my favorite pastimes is going out early on a crisp morning and casting out a line, hoping to reel in the biggest bass in the water. When it comes to bass fishing, there are a few things you should know to get started. First, you'll have to have the proper rod and reel combo along with the correct line. Next, you'll need to have a variety of baits specifically structured to attract bass. And finally, you'll want to know how to put these aspects together along with your own technique to catch the biggest of them all. The only thing I can't tell you about bass fishing is where to find your honey hole. So first, we want to cover the types of rod and reel combinations used for fishing bass. There are several types of poles, but I like to fish with a 6'6" medium heavy rod. This means the rod will only bend in the top half of the pole, making it a bit stronger than a light heavy and not quite as strong as a heavy rod. I like to use two different types of reels shown here. One is an open face reel, which is more of a beginner's reel. It's easy to operate. You simply flip the bail, cast the line, and close the bail. The bail is this line right here that flips over the top of the line. The second is a bait caster reel, which is shown down here. That requires a little more finesse and practice. You must hold the line while casting out and cut it off right as it hits the water, so you don't tangle your line. Another big difference in these two is what you're using for bait, which is what we will cover next. But first, is there a universal combo when it comes to fishing? Let's see what pro fisherman Kevin Van Dam has to say.
Very specifically, what's the reel, what's the gear ratio, what's the rod length, and what's the bait, if you could only use one?
I would probably have to pick a 7-foot medium heavy action bait cast rod, with a 6:6 to 1 gear ratio reel. So to be the most versatile, to have the most options, and then I'd probably have to throw a jig. Because there's just a lot of places that you.
Now that we have our rod and reel set up, let's start with what you can use on your bait caster combo. A topwater bait is exactly as it sounds, a bait that jumps across the water to attract more fish to that area. Bass will eat almost anything, so these baits come in many variations, some as frogs, salamanders, and smaller fish. According to pro angler Jason Christie, you want to start with your combos that make the most attractions to the fish and work your way down the line. Therefore, we follow the bait cast with an open face combo, which is for your lighter baits like a plastic scented worm or a jig. A jig is usually something with a lead sinker molded to a hook and some sort of soft body attached. Some have metal that makes sounds in the water, and some are just simple. This is a jig here on the bottom, the metal sinker and the hook, and then your worms. And on this one we have some frogs that are topwater baits. After you've picked out which combination of lure you want to use, you're ready to start casting. We already covered the two different ways to cast out your line depending on the setup that you choose. Now let's talk about the speed you reel your line in. So if you're working with a jig or a worm, you'll want to make the line hop a little and reel it in at a steady, moderate pace. When it comes to your topwater baits, you'll want to move those a little bit faster so it doesn't sink in the water, which would defeat the purpose of the bait. When you hook a fish, you'll feel your line go taut. At this point, you'll quickly jerk your rod upward to set the hook, which simply means you're getting the hook deep enough in the fish to reel it in. According to pro fisherman Jimmy Houston, as long as you're bumping into things, you're doing it right. Now that you've got the fundamentals down, let's look back on everything you've gathered from this presentation today. Now you have your preferred rod and reel combo, or if you like to switch it up, you have a couple to choose from. Your bait, whether a frog, a worm, or a simple jig, is properly assembled to your hook and line. And finally, you've practiced your casting and reeling technique, so you'll know just how to get the bait in the water and attract the bass, and how to make sure you can reel them in to look your prize over. At this point, you're completely ready to get out there and start casting a line. But remember, patience is a virtue.